Alice here, and I'm with
Deborah Monroy here in very rainy Avondale Estates, Georgia. And we'll just mention a brief description of the I Ching, just a brief summary. It's a form of divination where the reader interprets signs and in this way can get some prediction of in our case, we're dividing predictions into monthly sections. And so for the month of May, the predictions would be both for, as I understand it, individual energy, also the energy of the collective. And the I Ching is going to guide us around those two aspects of the energy that happens in May.
the book by Smith called Predictions for 2025 I Ching. And the I Ching is considered a book of changes. And one of the premises is that life is constantly changing because energy is constantly changing. So energy comes in and it changes to something else. That's part of life. It's not fixed. It's constantly changing. And speaking of energy coming in, you had an experience this morning.
Yes, during a Zoom meeting, there was actually an earthquake. And it was so unusual. The room where I was shook and then the building shook. And I just wrote it off. I thought the cat must be banging something against the wall. And then the entire building shook. Then hours later, I realized it was an earthquake, which is pretty cool because there was no damage for us here. I have been in earthquakes where there was damage, but it was just a shakeup. Just a reminder, not everything is under my control by a long shot.
I think much of
I'm,
anything is under my control other than my thoughts and my mindset. And even then, sometimes it goes on a wild excursion. And I think, what do they call that?
monkey mind.
The monkey mind. What we're looking at is the month of May, chapter 9 of the book. And there are two waves of energy that are represented in May.
Awakening, and then part 2 is wind. So awakening and then wind.
When we left April, it was, you will know the energy is shifting to May when you're forced to check your wastefulness and are confronted with the injustices of the world. This first part is you're flying high in April, you're very productive, you've got all this stuff going on. And in some cases, this is great, I've got it handled. You get carried away. You can get out of balance, actually, with doing things or projects or going out and spending, collecting things or whatever. And May's energy is about trying to examine both equality and balance in relationships and interactions. Circumstances of the May's energy, and this is the collective. So in your community, maybe where you work, or on the world politics stage, or whatever you're following, that you are looking at, you may be actually feeling upset because there's upset going on in the community or there's upset going on around you. And it's not necessarily that you are upset, but you're feeling that way. And collective energy is influencing your own feelings. When you look at your own life, sometimes you go, why? Everything looks like it's okay here. Why am I feeling that? Have you noticed that, Deborah?
That is a dilemma for me. I'm aware that, especially in my community in Avondale, Avondale is a bubble so far right inside the perimeter here in Metro Atlanta. And we're like a big park. It's like a big garden here. We're sheltered in some ways from some of the poverty and some of the crime that most of Metro Atlanta is exposed to. And so I'm aware of and grateful for the benefit, for the grace in my own life, but I'm also aware that I'm in the minority, actually. And remember, at the end of April, it directs our attention to that aspect of injustice in the world. And that's a balance. That's certainly an area where I need to set boundaries. But I am aware that I'm privileged at this time. And I am aware of a good deal of injustice and violence and inequality in the world at large. And it seems larger than ever, frankly, these days. And that concerns me.
So the month's energy is an opportunity or gift from the I Ching to raise your awareness. Do you hold on to the weight of the world or do you release it? And if you're holding on, how can you move towards action and release emotional shock, but not the desire to help?
For myself, this tells me to allow myself to experience, to be aware of that injustice in the world, and to release it in order to get out of my own way and to do what I can do is the question. And that is an ongoing question. These days, I have to trust that when I am able to do something, I will see that opportunity or I will see that responsibility and I will be able to act. I'm not always sure what I should be doing in order to respond.
The I Ching cautions against offering in the area of time and money what you don't have. Because when you offer what you don't have, it seems like you're headed down the tunnel of suffering. Because then you start to suffer and you start to feel like shortage. You might beat up on yourself or you're out of balance. And the whole thing with the I Ching is that we're aware of our actions, we're aware of actions that we take that can cause imbalance in us, and that our goal is to bring ourselves back to balance as we can. And so I thought this was a great quote in here. And my yoga teacher trainer, Harsha, always said, if your cup is not full, there is nothing to give to others. You must always fill your cup first.
That's
That
good. It continues under the reflect section. Am I giving from a place of strength or am I overextending myself? That's a good question that goes
Right.
along with the quote you've read.
And I know that many times I overextend myself in telling people, "Oh, no problem, I'll do that, or I'll pick this up, or I'll do whatever." And then sometimes they get resentful, but it's not the other person. I was the one who did not set a boundary or did not recognize that I didn't have the capacities or the resources to do X, Y, and Z. So it's really on me. Am I doing it from strength or I'm doing it for a reason that may not be helpful?
We mentioned that the I Ching is about change, and so change makes us either crazy or flexible. Probably either one in turn, but the last question under the reflect section, what boundaries can I set to protect my energy and resources? Again, there's no hard and fast boundary. And I'm called on to use my judgment when I need to change the boundary or reset the boundary or ignore the boundary and just roll forward. I think that's where this book is helpful in suggesting prompts as to how you should go forward in the importance of boundaries. The book can't tell you how to do them, but it can suggest the importance of boundaries and to reflect on that and hopefully be an aid in setting those flexible boundaries in place. Movable boundaries, bendable boundaries.
So the caution that comes after that reflection is what you have and wish to give may not be the appropriate gift. I found that very interesting because sometimes I want to give things to people and it's just what I want to do. And it may not be of interest or even helpful to the other person or useful to them. Have you had that experience?
What I've been thinking about this past year, especially, is that my sister, who's a good deal younger than I am, and a friend of mine who I've known for over a decade, we met at work. Both of them are really expert gift givers. And I've been thinking about how incredibly thoughtful and accurate and appropriate gifts that they have given me. And I think it's one of those situations where a gift is really wonderful if I just fall in love with it and will never part with it. Secondarily, it might be wonderful if it's something wonderful that I can pass along. But from my sister or my friend, I've never parted with anything that they've given me. And that's what I've been trying to focus on, as the book recommends, being culturally appropriate, thinking of that person's personality and preferences and trying to be more thoughtful, more specific in giving a gift. But I am focusing more closely on individual personalities and giving more useful gifts, more appreciated gifts, especially as we all grow older and we want to have less things overall. Try to focus on being a more better gift giver.
There's some prompts. And the first one was check everything with your gut. And I think that's like your instinct or your intuition. Does this feel right in terms of a behavior or, I guess, interaction with somebody? Is this person or situation aligned with where I am right now? And I think if they're not, if you feel that it's off or something just doesn't feel right, then that would be where you would want to put a boundary in or remove yourself or excuse yourself or not get involved. Don't get drawn into a web. What's going to happen as the month progresses is that the energy will shift from the first energy, which was awakenings, to the second, which is wind. And this energy, it's about setting realistic goals, receiving support, and acting decisively. Have you seen anything about that? Have you any sense of a shift from the first energy of the month into the second?
The value for me in the second part under win is the focus on the phase of intentional clearing of self-doubt, hesitation, and fear. And then under the reflect section on the next page, 156, what encourage us to become the person that we really want to be. And I'm in the middle of a Star Wars marathon. I've been rewatching several Star Wars movies, and this last one, I'm still in the beginning of it, and Princess Leia tells Rey, who is her student, she says, never be afraid of who you are, which I think is a short way of saying that to clear that self-doubt and not be afraid of who you are. I don't think it hurts to have some question, better to question than to be arrogant. But at a certain point, for myself, I do need to go forward and trust who I am. And that's one of the things in the last year or two as I've grown older and I have more options and it feels like my moods are more variable and I have more of a spectrum of moods lately. I still feel that I'm grateful to have that feeling that I've become the person that I've always wanted to be. And of course, that's the situation of becoming. Most likely there'll be changes, but I'm grateful for that feeling in the midst of changes and growing older and various uncertainties of having that insight, which hopefully is genuine, that I have become the person that I've wanted to become. I don't know if you've had maybe a similar reaction to those remarks in that section of the book.
Actually, just that I am. I've found there's more acceptance. I'm not always trying to fix myself anymore. That there's a certain grace and appreciation, and I am who I am. And it just feels good to be me. I don't feel that there's deficits that I have to work on. I think when I was younger, I was always trying to get better, or I didn't know something, or I wasn't good enough, or this, that, and the other. And that's over. And maybe that's part of, as you said, as you get older, but it just feels good in my skin bag. I'm here. I'm happy to
Yeah.
be here. And I'm
Yeah.
having fun. And I want to do, I don't know how to describe it. Not like I want to help, but I want to share in a way that others either feel uplifted or of some value for them. And it's not like a big intention hanging off of me. Oh, I have to go and make things better. It's just from inside. So that's the person I want to be.
That's a good zone to be in. Recently, I realized I'm a photographer and a writer. I'm an unknown photographer and a largely unpublished writer. And the truth is, I'm very happy with that. I may have options, I may generate options, but to be honest, at this point, I'm happy to have been able to do the work, and the work is there.
The second reflection I thought that was interesting here is, did I examine my goals in detail during this month to ensure they align with my intentions and purpose? So I would say yes, that having this awareness from reading this chapter has really been helpful this month. I'm hoping that as we continue each month, of course, we don't get to choose now to advance each to the next month, but that's something that I've learned from being aware of the energies of May. That will practice going forward on a regular basis. Have you had that this month?
It's been a wonderful month for the most part. Also, there have been some bizarre things that have happened, the most obvious being an earthquake that I thought was my cat using her scratching posts. So we'll see what else May brings.
As Eve has written in the I Ching book, that the energy is representative, but it doesn't mean that this exact energy starts May 1 and then it shifts on May 15th to another energy. And then on May 30th or 31st, will shift into June. That the energy is fluid and you may feel like it's already changed. Things have already changed into the second energy of wind, which is what we're talking about.
It's true. No one's keeping score. So,
Right. It's all personal, and it
yeah,
shows up different for everybody. It's not okay out there in the collective. We can report on it in the 6 o'clock news. The energy shifted. This is all a personal exploration and understanding the world around you.
good discussion.
The takeaways, I think the first one we talked about, recognize your limits. You cannot give what you do not have, whether it's time, money, or emotional energy, and offer wisely. Ensure that your offerings are sustainable and come from a place of strength, and set realistic goals.
And then clear winter conflict, which
Yeah.
is important. And also be thorough. Good summary.
It says May's energies, it's a month of learning, adjusting, and growing into your power. And by navigating your fears, self-doubts, and hesitations, you will have more clarity in how you're being in the world and can make adjustments when needed. So we will see what happens when the energy shifts to June. We'll be looking for the energy shift when you have to pay closer attention to timing and the people you surround yourself with. Anything else about this month of May and using this book, I Ching Predictions, which is available through Amazon? And there's the link below if you're interested. There's still time to work on that and join our conversations on a monthly basis as we look at what the energy is and the predictions for the month. Anything else, Deborah?
Be a dragon. Be the dragon you were meant to be.
The dragon, which is the creative and the balance of heaven and earth, like it talks about in the beginning of the book.
Excellent.
Looking forward to seeing you again soon.
We'll talk soon. Take care, Alice.
Take care, Deborah. Bye.
Bye now.